Question 1. A project manager is overseeing a large IT implementation project and has entered the Manage Procurements process. What is the primary focus of this process? A. Developing procurement documents and evaluating bids. B. Obtaining responses from sellers and selecting the best vendor. C. Managing procurement relationships, monitoring contract performance, and making changes as needed. D. Finalizing all open contracts and releasing the sellers from their obligations. Answer: C. Managing procurement relationships, monitoring contract performance, and making changes as needed. The Manage Procurements process centers on actively administering the contract relationship with the seller, monitoring their performance against the agreed-upon terms, and managing any necessary changes or corrective actions throughout the project lifecycle. This involves ensuring both parties fulfill their contractual obligations, from payment processing to formal communication. For instance, if a vendor delivers software modules behind schedule, this process involves managing the delay and implementing appropriate remedies according to the contract. The core idea is to keep the procurement on track and aligned with project goals, which requires diligent oversight and responsive action. Question 2. During the Manage Procurements process, the project team discovers that a seller is consistently failing to meet the agreed-upon quality standards for deliverables. What is the most appropriate immediate action for the project manager? A. Terminate the contract immediately and seek a new seller. B. Issue a formal notice of breach and withhold all pending payments. C. Conduct performance reviews, identify root causes, and work with the seller to implement corrective actions as per the contract. D. Re-evaluate the project scope to reduce the quality requirements. Answer: C. Conduct performance reviews, identify root causes, and work with the seller to implement corrective actions as per the contract. When a seller underperforms, the most appropriate initial action is to address the issue systematically and according to the terms of the contract. This involves using tools and techniques like performance reviews to understand why the quality standards are not being met, followed by collaborating with the seller on corrective actions to bring their performance back into compliance. Terminating the contract or withholding payments without attempting resolution first can be premature and lead to costly disputes. For example, if a construction subcontractor uses incorrect materials, the project manager should review their process, determine the cause, and guide them to rectify it based on the contract. Remember, maintaining a collaborative yet firm approach is key to successful contract management. Question 3. A project is using a cost-plus fixed fee (CPFF) contract for a portion of its work. During the Manage Procurements process, the seller requests an increase in the fixed fee due to unforeseen market price increases for materials. How should the project manager address this? A. Approve the request immediately, as CPFF contracts allow for cost adjustments. B. Reject the request, as fixed fees are not subject to change in CPFF contracts. C. Evaluate the request as a change request, comparing it against the contract's terms and conditions, and negotiate if applicable. D. Convert the contract to a cost-plus incentive fee (CPIF) contract to accommodate future cost fluctuations. Answer: C. Evaluate the request as a change request, comparing it against the contract's terms and conditions, and negotiate if applicable. In a cost-plus fixed fee (CPFF) contract, the fixed fee portion is generally not subject to change unless the scope of work significantly changes, or specific terms within the contract allow for adjustments under defined circumstances. A seller's request for an increased fixed fee, even due to unforeseen market prices, must be treated as a formal change request, requiring thorough evaluation against the original contract and potentially negotiation. For instance, if a custom software development project on a CPFF contract experiences a significant shift in requirements, the fixed fee might be renegotiated, but not typically for external market fluctuations alone. Always refer back to the contract terms to govern how changes are handled. Question 4. What is the primary purpose of a payment system in the Manage Procurements process? A. To determine the total cost of the project at completion. B. To ensure timely and accurate payments to sellers in accordance with the contract terms. C. To track the project's overall budget and expenditures. D. To assess the financial health of potential sellers during selection. Answer: B. To ensure timely and accurate payments to sellers in accordance with the contract terms. A payment system within the Manage Procurements process is fundamentally about facilitating the exchange of funds with sellers as stipulated in the contract. Its primary purpose is to ensure that payments are made on time and are accurate, aligning with agreed-upon milestones, deliverables, or progress reports. This timely payment fosters a positive relationship with the seller and avoids potential delays or disputes that could arise from financial discrepancies. For example, a construction project's payment system might release funds to a subcontractor only after an inspection confirms a concrete slab is poured and cured correctly, as specified in the contract. Always remember that fulfilling financial obligations promptly is crucial for maintaining seller trust and smooth operations. Question 5. During contract performance, a disagreement arises between the buyer and the seller regarding the interpretation of a specific clause in the contract. This situation is best described as what? A. A risk. B. A claim. C. A lesson learned. D. An issue log entry. Answer: B. A claim. When the buyer and seller cannot agree on how to interpret or apply a contract provision, or when one party seeks compensation or a change based on circumstances not clearly covered, this constitutes a claim. Claims are formal requests or assertions by one party against another for remedies such as money, time, or other relief, and they often arise from disputed changes or performance issues. For example, if a software vendor believes the client requested additional features outside the original scope, they might submit a claim for increased compensation. Addressing claims formally and per contract is a critical part of managing procurements. Question 6. The project manager is reviewing performance reports from a seller during the Manage Procurements process. What is the most important aspect to focus on when reviewing these reports? A. Identifying areas for potential contract termination. B. Confirming adherence to contract terms and identifying variances from the baseline. C. Calculating the final earned value of the contract. D. Planning for future procurement activities. Answer: B. Confirming adherence to contract terms and identifying variances from the baseline. When reviewing seller performance reports, the project manager's primary focus should be on verifying that the seller is meeting all contractual obligations, including scope, schedule, quality, and cost. It's crucial to identify any deviations or variances from the established baselines and the agreed-upon contract terms. This allows for proactive identification of issues and enables timely corrective actions. For instance, if a report shows a software module is 15% behind schedule and 5% over budget, the project manager must investigate these variances immediately. Your goal is to ensure the seller's actions align with the original agreement, not just to look for problems, but to ensure successful delivery. Question 7. What type of document is typically updated as an output of the Manage Procurements process to reflect the current status of the procurement? A. Procurement Management Plan. B. Procurement Strategy. C. Project Management Plan. D. Business Case. Answer: C. Project Management Plan. The Project Management Plan is a comprehensive document that contains all subsidiary plans, including the Procurement Management Plan. During the Manage Procurements process, changes to contracts, such as approved change requests, updates to seller performance, or modifications to procurement activities, will necessitate updates to the relevant components of the Project Management Plan. For example, if a contract amendment delays a key deliverable, the project schedule baseline within the Project Management Plan would need to be updated. This ensures that the overall project plan accurately reflects the current status and strategy regarding procurements. Question 8. A key input to the Manage Procurements process is the selected seller, along with their contract. What other crucial input is vital for effective contract administration? A. Organizational process assets, OPAs, related to historical procurement data. B. Enterprise environmental factors, EEFs, like market conditions. C. Work performance reports. D. Lessons learned register. Answer: C. Work performance reports. Work performance reports are an essential input to the Manage Procurements process because they provide critical information about how the seller is performing their work. These reports include data on technical performance, schedule adherence, and cost expenditure, which are vital for monitoring the contract's progress and assessing the seller's compliance. For instance, if a seller's weekly report indicates delays in meeting specific milestones, this work performance information would prompt the project manager to address the issue. Without accurate work performance data, effectively managing the contract and relationship would be challenging. Question 9. When managing procurement, what is a crucial aspect of communication between the buyer and seller? A. Informality and casual discussions to build rapport. B. Strict adherence to formal communication channels as outlined in the contract. C. Limiting communication to only legal representatives. D. Communicating only when problems arise. Answer: B. Strict adherence to formal communication channels as outlined in the contract. In procurement management, especially when administering a contract, formal communication is paramount. The contract typically specifies how communications, particularly those related to changes, performance issues, or approvals, must be conducted, example in writing, through specific channels. Adhering to these formal channels ensures that all critical exchanges are documented, traceable, and legally binding, protecting both the buyer and the seller. For example, a change order must always be formally documented and approved, not just discussed casually. This formality helps prevent misunderstandings and provides a clear audit trail. Question 10. The project manager needs to assess the technical performance of a vendor providing specialized engineering services. Which tool or technique would be most appropriate for this evaluation in the Manage Procurements process? A. Cost Performance Index, CPI, calculation. B. Bidder conferences. C. Performance reviews. D. Make or buy analysis. Answer: C. Performance reviews. Performance reviews are a key tool and technique used in the Manage Procurements process to assess a seller's progress and effectiveness in meeting contractual obligations. These reviews focus on comparing the seller's actual performance against the contract's baseline, including technical specifications, quality standards, and schedule adherence. For instance, a performance review might involve a meeting with the engineering services vendor to discuss their progress on design specifications, identify any technical issues, and ensure they are on track. This technique allows for a systematic evaluation of whether the vendor is delivering what was agreed upon. Question 11. During the execution of a fixed-price contract, the seller informs the project manager that they are experiencing higher than anticipated labor costs, which will impact their profit margin. How should the project manager respond within the Manage Procurements process? A. Offer to absorb the increased labor costs to maintain good relations. B. Advise the seller that the risk of cost overruns is typically borne by the seller in fixed-price contracts. C. Renegotiate the contract to a cost-reimbursable type. D. Issue a change request to increase the contract value. Answer: B. Advise the seller that the risk of cost overruns is typically borne by the seller in fixed-price contracts. In a fixed-price contract, the seller assumes the majority of the risk for cost overruns. This means that if their actual costs exceed what they estimated, it's generally their responsibility to absorb those additional expenses, and the contract price remains unchanged unless the scope is altered. The project manager's role is to ensure the seller delivers according to the agreed-upon fixed price, not to absorb the seller's internal cost management issues. For example, if a software vendor agreed to develop a specific application for a fixed amount, any increase in their development costs is their burden. This principle is fundamental to the nature of fixed-price agreements. Question 12. What is the primary benefit of maintaining clear and thorough procurement documentation throughout the Manage Procurements process? A. To satisfy regulatory compliance requirements. B. To provide a clear audit trail for all procurement decisions and actions. C. To simplify the process of contract termination. D. To assist in the selection of future sellers. Answer: B. To provide a clear audit trail for all procurement decisions and actions. Maintaining clear and thorough procurement documentation, such as contracts, change orders, invoices, performance reports, and communications, is crucial because it provides a comprehensive audit trail. This trail documents all decisions, actions, and changes related to the procurement, which is invaluable for dispute resolution, verifying compliance, and supporting project audits. For example, if there's a disagreement about whether a specific feature was requested, clear documentation of change requests and approvals can resolve the issue. Always remember that good documentation is your best defense and reference point in procurement. Question 13. A change request is initiated by the seller due to a significant scope change mandated by the buyer. What is the appropriate next step for the project manager in the Manage Procurements process? A. Immediately approve the change request and update the contract. B. Reject the change request, as scope changes are not allowed once a contract is signed. C. Submit the change request for formal review and approval by the Change Control Board, CCB, as per the project management plan. D. Ask the seller to absorb the cost of the scope change as part of their contractual obligation. Answer: C. Submit the change request for formal review and approval by the Change Control Board, CCB, as per the project management plan. Any significant change to the project scope that impacts a contract, whether initiated by the buyer or seller, must follow the project's integrated change control process. This typically involves submitting the change request to the Change Control Board, CCB, for formal review, assessment of impact, and approval or rejection. This ensures that changes are managed systematically, risks are understood, and contractual agreements are updated appropriately. For instance, if a client demands an additional feature for a software system under contract, this request must go through the CCB before it can be integrated into the seller's work in contract. Following the established change control procedure is paramount. Question 14. Which of the following is not typically a direct output of the Manage Procurements process? A. Change requests. B. Work performance information. C. Procurement management plan. D. Updates to project documents. Answer: C. Procurement Management Plan. The Procurement Management Plan is developed during the planned procurement management process and serves as an input to the Manage Procurements process, guiding how procurements will be administered. It is not typically a direct output of managing procurements, although it can be updated as an output if new information necessitates revisions. Direct outputs of the Manage Procurements process include change requests stemming from performance issues, work performance information on seller progress, and various updates to project documents like the Lessons Learned Register or Risk Register. Think of the plan as the instruction manual you follow during execution, not the result of that execution. Question 15. The project manager identifies a potential dispute with a vendor over a misunderstanding of deliverables. What is the most proactive approach to address this in the Manage Procurements process? A. Immediately initiate legal action to enforce contract terms. B. Formally document the issue, schedule a meeting to discuss the misunderstanding, and attempt to resolve it through negotiation. C. Wait for the vendor to formally raise a claim. D. Ignore the issue, hoping it will resolve itself. Answer: B. Formally document the issue, schedule a meeting to discuss the misunderstanding, and attempt to resolve it through negotiation. When a potential dispute arises, the most proactive and effective approach is to address it early and formally. Documenting the issue creates a record, and engaging in direct negotiation with the vendor provides an opportunity to clarify misunderstandings and find a mutually agreeable solution before the issue escalates into a formal claim or legal dispute. For example, if a client thinks a delivered report is incomplete while the vendor believes it meets requirements, a meeting to review the contract scope definition can often resolve the misunderstanding. Early communication and negotiation are key to preventing minor issues from becoming major problems. Question 16. What is the primary purpose of a claims administration system in the Manage Procurements process? A. To determine the total cost of the project. B. To formally manage and resolve all contested changes and constructive changes from buyers or sellers. C. To select the most qualified sellers. D. To track all project communications. Answer: B. To formally manage and resolve all contested changes and constructive changes from buyers or sellers. A claims administration system is specifically designed to handle and resolve formal requests or assertions by one party against another for a change in contract terms, or for compensation or adjustment. These are known as claims, and they often arise from contested changes, such as disagreements over scope, schedule, or cost impacts. The system ensures that all claims are documented, analyzed, negotiated, and ultimately resolved, which may involve alternative dispute resolution methods if negotiation fails. For instance, if a vendor claims additional payment for work they consider outside the original scope, the claims administration system dictates the process for reviewing and addressing this. It's about orderly resolution of disagreements. Question 17. The project manager conducts regular performance reviews with a key seller. Which type of output from these reviews is most useful for future projects? A. Contract financial reports. B. Approved change requests. C. Lessons learned information. D. Work performance data. Answer: C. Lessons learned information. Lessons learned information, documented during performance reviews, captures valuable insights about what went well, what went wrong, and what could be improved in managing procurements. This information is then archived and becomes a crucial organizational process asset that can benefit future projects by helping project managers avoid past mistakes and replicate successful strategies. For example, documenting that a particular vendor provided excellent communication and timely deliverables can inform future vendor selection. Always strive to capture and share lessons learned to continuously improve project management practices. Question 18. An agile project uses a series of fixed price increments with a specific vendor. In the Manage Procurements process, what is crucial for adapting to the iterative nature of agile? A. Rigidly sticking to the initial contract without any changes. B. Frequent communication, collaboration, and adaptive contract reviews with the vendor. C. Focusing solely on delivering the minimum viable product at the end. D. Requiring detailed upfront documentation for every sprint. Answer: B. Frequent communication, collaboration, and adaptive contract reviews with the vendor. In an agile environment, procurement management must be flexible and adaptive to accommodate iterative development and evolving requirements. Frequent communication and close collaboration with the vendor are essential to ensure the contract adapts as features are refined and priorities shift. This often involves adaptive contract reviews, perhaps at the end of each iteration, to ensure alignment and address any necessary adjustments. For instance, instead of a single, large contract, agile projects often use smaller, incremental contracts or contracts that allow for scope flexibility within a defined budget and timeline. The key is to foster a partnership that supports ongoing adaptation rather than rigid adherence to an initial, fixed plan. Question 19. During the Manage Procurements process, the project manager identifies that a seller has failed to deliver a critical component according to the agreed-upon specifications, putting the project at risk. What is the project manager's primary responsibility in this situation? A. To issue a formal notice of default to the seller and proceed with contract termination. B. To work with the seller to identify the root cause of the non-conformance and determine corrective actions as per the contract. C. To escalate the issue to senior management for immediate intervention. D. To accept the non-conforming component to avoid further delays. Answer: B. To work with the seller to identify the root cause of the non-conformance and determine corrective actions as per the contract. When a seller fails to deliver according to specifications, the project manager's immediate responsibility is to address the non-conformance systematically. This involves collaborating with the seller to understand why the component failed to meet specifications, root cause analysis, and then implementing corrective actions outlined in the contract, aiming to bring the deliverable into compliance. Terminating the contract or escalating immediately may be premature and could lead to unnecessary delays or legal complications. For example, if a fabricated metal part doesn't fit correctly, the project manager should work with the supplier to identify the manufacturing error and ensure a conforming replacement is provided according to the contract's quality clauses. Focus on resolution before escalation. Question 20. Which of the following is a key input that guides the project manager in administering a specific contract during the Manage Procurements process? A. Enterprise Environmental Factors, EFs. B. Organizational Process Assets, OPAs. C. Agreements, contracts. D. Stakeholder Register. Answer: C. Agreements, contracts. The signed agreements, or contracts, are perhaps the most crucial input to the Manage Procurements process. These legally binding documents lay out all the terms and conditions, scope of work, deliverables, payment schedules, and responsibilities for both the buyer and the seller. The project manager must constantly refer to the contract to ensure compliance, manage performance, process payments, and handle any changes or disputes. For instance, if a dispute arises over payment terms, the contract is the definitive source of truth. Always remember, the contract is your guidebook for successful procurement execution. Question 21. In managing procurement, what is the significance of the contract change control system? A. It determines which sellers are eligible to bid on future projects. B. It dictates the process for modifying the terms and conditions of a contract. C. It tracks the financial performance of all active contracts. D. It outlines the communication channels between the buyer and seller. Answer: B. It dictates the process for modifying the terms and conditions of a contract. The contract change control system defines the specific procedures and protocols for how changes to an existing contract will be proposed, reviewed, approved, and implemented. This system ensures that any modifications to the contract scope, schedule, cost, or other terms are managed formally and systematically, often requiring approval from designated authorities like the Change Control Board. For example, if the buyer needs to add an additional deliverable to a software development contract, the contract change control system specifies how this new requirement will be documented, costed, and officially incorporated into the agreement. It's the gatekeeper for all contract modifications. Question 22. What is the main objective when closing a procurement, following the Manage Procurements process? A. To release the seller from all obligations. B. To formally conclude the contract and all associated project procurements. C. To conduct lessons learned specific to the procurement. D. To make final payments to the seller. Answer: B. To formally conclude the contract and all associated project procurements. The main objective of closing a procurement is to formally finalize the contract and all related agreements, confirming that all terms and conditions have been met by both the buyer and the seller. This involves administrative closure, such as verifying all work is complete, updating records, archiving documentation, and often releasing financial retainage. For instance, after a construction project is finished and all inspections are passed, the procurement for a subcontractor must be formally closed, not just passively allowed to end. Formal closure ensures legal and contractual obligations are fulfilled, preventing future disputes. Question 23. A project manager is conducting a procurement performance review. What is the key focus of this review from a monitoring and controlling perspective? A. To determine if the seller should be blacklisted for future projects. B. To verify if the seller is adhering to contractual obligations and delivering expected performance. C. To identify new opportunities for further procurement. D. To renegotiate the contract terms. Answer: B. To verify if the seller is adhering to contractual obligations and delivering expected performance. The key focus of a procurement performance review, as part of monitoring and controlling in the Manage Procurements process, is to systematically assess whether the seller is meeting all commitments outlined in the contract. This includes evaluating adherence to the scope, schedule, quality, and cost baselines, and identifying any deviations. For example, during a review for a marketing campaign, the project manager would check if ad creatives meet specifications, if deadlines are being hit, and if spending is within budget. This ongoing assessment helps ensure the project receives what it paid for and allows for timely corrective actions if performance issues arise. Question 24. What is a key tool/technique used to manage payments and ensure invoices are processed accurately during the Manage Procurements process? A. Bidder conferences. B. Procurement negotiations. C. Payment systems. D. Source selection criteria. Answer: C. Payment systems. Payment systems are a crucial tool within the Manage Procurements process, specifically designed to handle the financial transactions with sellers. These systems ensure that invoices are processed accurately, approved according to contractual terms, example upon milestone completion or deliverable acceptance, and paid in a timely manner. For example, an automated payment system might release funds to a software vendor only after a specific module is successfully tested and approved. Effective payment systems are vital for maintaining good seller relationships and ensuring smooth project financial flow. Question 25. The project manager needs to ensure that the project team is aligned with the procurement terms and conditions. What document, often updated during Manage Procurements, would be essential for communicating these terms internally? A. Project schedule. B. Risk register. C. Communications management plan. D. Project management plan, specifically, updates to subsidiary plans like the procurement management plan. Answer: D. Project management plan, specifically, updates to subsidiary plans like the procurement management plan. The project management plan, particularly its subsidiary plans like the procurement management plan and potentially others like the communications management plan or scope baseline, serves as the central repository for project guidance. Any updates or changes to procurement terms and conditions agreed upon during the Manage Procurements process must be reflected in these plans to ensure the entire project team is aware of and aligned with them. For example, if a new vendor is brought in for a critical component, the updated procurement management plan details their responsibilities and contractual terms for everyone's reference. Keeping this plan current ensures consistent understanding and execution across the team.